move on to the next part of what we had prepared for you this morning, and I'm going to call on Sister Lily if she might come in there to introduce our next keynote speaker. Over to you, Sister Lily.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks to everyone for being here today. Well, it's my pleasure today to introduce Mr. Paul Frecklington. Paul is the project coordinator of Ard Family Resource Centre in Doughiska in Galway. And that area was found to be the most culturally diverse community in the country. Prior to the pandemic, the centre received about 1,500 visitors a week, which says something about the dynamic centre that it is. And the people there, families, took part in various courses and classes and events, which is marvellous. It's considered that Paul at the moment is actually studying for his PhD, and his PhD is based on parent-adolescent relationships in a super diverse setting, an exploratory study. So Paul has also brought along 3 friends from the centre, Precious, Frank and Islamabad, and we're delighted to Islammiyah, and we're delighted that they're here, and you're all very welcome, and we are waiting to hear what you have to share with us. So thank you for coming.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes, Paul, we hear you.
I just got thrown out just as you started there, Sister Lily. I got thrown out of my laptop, so I've just come on the phone now. So sorry I missed the introduction.
Okay, great.
I think
Paul.
I'm just in time. So just to add to the technical difficulties today. So listen, thank you very much for inviting all of the team to the conference today. We're delighted to be here, but more so, we're delighted to be including 3 of our colleagues. And I think the word including it is really important, because in everything we say, what can we do to make a difference? And just today will make a difference. So just to give you an idea of our Family Resource Centre, who we are and what we do. We've been in operation for 11 years now, and we're located on the east side of Galway City, in a community that was described by Project Life Course 2015 as the most culturally diverse community in the state. Just to give you an idea, that there was 60% of the population from the census identify themselves as other than Irish, non-Irish. And also a survey done in the school showed 41 different languages spoken in the school, and 30 of those were prominent, as in the language spoken at their home. So that just gives you an idea of the diversity. It was a very young population. There were far more families in the Doughiska-Roscommon area than far more than in the state average and in the rest of the city. 71% of the houses are rented, which is often the case when people are trying to get a foothold in a new country. But that in itself creates hardships and a lot of difficulties that we have to deal with. Part of our work in the centre really is about getting that foothold and giving people the opportunity to take a step up the ladder. But I've got to say that is really difficult. And we as the workers in the centre, we want everybody to be welcome. We welcome everybody, but we're constantly aware, and we have to try and overcome this, that people are entering the centre with baggage that they shouldn't really be entering with. And there is, whilst we can talk about racism, the systematic racism is at play in Ireland. And to give you an example, we in the Doughiska area cannot get DESH status for the schools, or cannot get what any other status that would give us extra funding, an easy path to funding. The reason being, we are classed as slightly affluent as a community. I remember asking a former mayor of Galway City, did you know we're slightly affluent? And he told me, he looked at me as though I was crazy, as though I had 2 heads, and said, don't be silly. The reason we are slightly affluent is because there's an algorithm that works out the deprivation rating that then forms the basis on which government award funding to certain communities. The algorithm in Doughiska is flawed in the fact that when people, all the stats are taken from the census. So one of the questions in the census is have you completed a third level education? And so people will say yes. However, it doesn't say, is that third level education recognized in this state? A small survey of 50 people showed me that 80% of the people's qualifications weren't recognized in this state. So therefore, we are shown in Doughiska that the stats show in Doughiska that people have an opportunity to get work because they've completed a third level qualification. It isn't the fact. The fact is that their qualifications aren't recognised. So we really are fighting against all of those things. When and that's one of those things that hides under the surface. To quote Kevin. And we're fully aware of these inequalities, but we still have to keep working and trying our hardest. Yet we know that people that we consider, I mean, the people that come into the centre, we consider them part of us. We try and operate as best we can, as open as we can. We're constantly hindered by red tape, but we keep trying to make people feel as welcome and as part of the centre as we can. And the richness that we get from that is quite incredible. We really do feel privileged to work with people. I think just something, and I'm gonna be quiet soon because this isn't my story, so I'm going to hand over in a moment to one of my colleagues. I've got two other colleagues on today, Natasha Muldoon and Elska Bannock, and they're going to help me with the introductions for our colleagues. Just one story though I remember, and this goes back to a traveller who did work experience with us, and he was assigned to me, and he basically he couldn't get work experience anywhere else. So he asked that I got a call from the school, can this guy come to me? He came and he was wonderful. He was absolutely wonderful. He was on time. He did everything I asked. He was polite. He was just a great guy. And he wanted to work as a mechanic. And I said, look, I'll try and get you a job. And he said, what's the point? I said, why would you bother? He said, I'm not going to get a job. You know, I'm a traveller. And that really struck me. And I've got to say, a few years later, I found him trying to take things from behind the centre without asking, is the best way to put it. It was stuff we weren't using, but it had been promised to somebody else. And the sense, you know, of, well, you know, there for the grace of God go I. You know, I'm very privileged because if I was in that situation, he'd just had 2 children. He was trying to feed his family. He's trying to make, and the hopelessness he felt. So we've really got to work against that. So again, it's really important though to hear those stories and to hear from people, and that's what we're going to hear today from our 3 colleagues. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Natasha Muldoon, who's she's going to introduce our first speaker. So over to you, Natasha.
Hi everyone, it's lovely to be in this space today, and I am absolutely honoured to be introducing the next speaker, Precious Tedeye. So I'm a youth worker in Ard Family Resource Centre, and I actually got to know Precious through Sister Chanel Canny. She introduced Precious to me when Precious was sitting her Leaving Cert within Merlin College, our local school, and over the past few years I have gotten to know Precious so well, and I'm constantly inspired by her resilience and courage, and she has really become a great sense of support for me in the youth project, and she really helps and inspires other young people who are in our centre. And she is a very creative person who has a real talent for spoken word and poetry, and yeah, she's just wonderful. So I'm going to pass you on to Precious, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Precious Tedeye, and I'm from Nigeria. I came into Ireland 2017, which I sit for my Leaving Cert 2017. And I must say I'm very honored to be part of this conference, and I'll be very happy to share my story and experience in Ireland. So first of all, we're talking about racism, but some people might not know the like meaning of racism or anything. When reading a book, I came across the definition for racism, which I find so like triggered to it, and I kind of like love the definition. And it says racism is a belief, attitude, institutional arrangement, and acts that tends to denigrate individuals or group because of phenotypic and characteristic or ethnic group affiliation. I really find that definition very triggered and very meaningful, because when I came to Ireland, I was kind of, because I came as a very young girl, and I was kind of like, well, I just felt like alone. Why, even when I was going to school, because I attended Mellon College in Doughiska, because I felt so lonely among my peers, because I just felt like, oh, my accent kind of sound different from others, and a lot. So I was just like, oh, because most of the time I always be myself during the break time and everything. So ever since, because I just felt like lonely ever since I came across Shana. So Shana introduced me to Natasha, and Natasha made me like, she just made me, I think she brought the creativity in me, which, because I was a shallow person, because I just try to always hide myself and keep myself away from people, because I don't want to be hurt. That was it. So when Chanel introduced me to Tasha, and Tasha introduced me to people part of the center, so I found the center to be like my other home, because I saw them as a friendly people, and they're like a family to me. So I was very inspired and encouraged. So from there I started like, oh, I love writing. Then I started helping Tasha. I started volunteer to help Tasha as in the community center. So I must say, community centers is very good, because it kind of bring people together, and it bring, especially people that are coming from different parts of the world. It makes them to know their community, and makes them to know people around. And it's also, and one thing I love about the center, it kind of makes you to know who you are, and makes you to like make you to know that people around actually cares for you. I know racism is something that is happening all over the world, and even though you've not experienced it, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It actually exists, because at first I'm like, racism, like I said, I've not experienced racism, so even if I've experienced it, I won't even know if it's called racism or anything. I'll just feel like, oh, maybe the person doesn't like me. Until when I started working in, there's one place I was working in, and so my employer actually woke up to me and told me that, oh, my accent sound rude to customers, so they won't be needing my service anymore. And I'm like, how does my accent sound rude to customers? So that kind of made me, because I felt so bad, and I was like, so you are trying to discriminate me because of my accent, because I'm talking as a normal human being like you, so I don't know how my accent sounds rude. And most people that know me already know me that, oh, Precious, you have a very calm voice. You can't, even when I'm speaking in school, they're like, oh, speak louder, we can't hear you. So how can you not tell me my accent sound rude? I was actually, I would say I was actually depressed with the statement, but I didn't let that get to me, and because I know I'm not rude, my accent doesn't sound rude, so I didn't really let it get to me. And so when I went to meet Tasha and I spoke with her, so she actually encouraged me. Tasha, and there's another lady called Christina, I think, yeah, Christina, yeah. So they spoke with me, and they actually calmed me down. They motivated me a lot of ways, so I was very happy. So what I'm saying this is that we should try and come together. They should try and, like, because racism is a killer of dreams. No matter how I want to say it, it kills dreams, because when you discriminate and exclude people out of because of their color of skin or anything, you are trying to push out treasures, because there are some people that have talent. You are scaring the talent away from them. You are trying to like hide them of that talent and deprive them of bringing out their creativity and exploring their self in the society. So that's what I have to say. And inclusion is very important, like creating a community center in all communities for to welcome everyone, especially young teens and young adults that are relocating from other parts of the world, from other countries, especially Africans, and coming in. So it's very good because it actually makes them feel comfortable in the country and it makes them feel happy. So that's all I have to say. And there's a word that I actually has a word at the end of the day, like the only race we have in the is normally the only race we have in the is the human race, which is scientifically proven. Every other race outside this race is called racism, which is the killer of the human race. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Precious. That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think just something to learn from that is that we're all affected by racism, because if racism is killing somebody's dreams, if racism is making somebody depressed, social cohesion doesn't exist. And that ripples right through society. So thank you so much, Precious. So without further ado now, I will bring on our next contributor, Frank Owusu. Frank is a wonderful person within our community. Everybody in the community knows him because he's constantly there to help others. Frank, when he didn't have anything to do, was certainly. Can I just ask, am I breaking up?
No.
No, okay, it's looked like it on the screen. Frank volunteered in the resource centre for a long time, helping us with all sorts of issues, but he is a really welcoming, good, decent human being. I always think of somebody, if your car broke down in the middle of nowhere, who would you ring? And Frank would be one of those people I would ring, because I know he would help, and he's that kind of person. So without further ado, I will hand over to Frank for his contribution. Thanks, Frank.
You're on mute, Frank.
Frank, you're on mute. Yeah.
You're still on mute.
You're fine now. Go ahead. Oh no, you're still, Frank. We still have struggling to hear you, Frank. No, it's not working.
Just.
Frank is unmuted, but his sound doesn't seem to be working.
Frank, have you tested your, if you go to, you see where it says the video on the bottom left of your screen? You go to video settings. And then go to audio. Can you hear me, Frank? I can't hear you. Frank, I'm just going to ring you. I tell you what we'll do.
The next speaker.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Elska, now, who will introduce our next speaker. Are you there, Elska?
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks, Elska. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm outdoors, so apologies if there's a bit of wind here in the background.
It's all good.
I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Islammiyah Saudique-Kadejo, who is also from Nigeria. And Islammiyah has been absolutely amazing. She has been involved with the Art Centre over the past 5 years now. Originally, she started as a part of her placement on gender studies. She became very involved with helping to organise for the Africa Day event. And she set up a fantastic exhibition that year around debusting myths around Africa. And Islammiyah is the founder and director of AMDAF, the Amdala Africa Foundation. And she's currently working with us and involved with family support and community development work in the Art Centre. So Islammiyah can tell you a bit more about what she's doing. She's really involved. She's so active in the community, and she's actually setting up a community radio station at the moment also. So I'll hand you over to Islammiyah. Thank you, Islammiyah.
Thanks, Elska.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll quickly talk about racism, like I've been asked to talk about, but I'll focus more on inclusion and how we can tackle racism. The typical example of racism or how it makes you feel as a person, as a victim, is just exactly what happened to Frank just now. When you are speaking and you are not heard, when you are in a dark place, you are making efforts, you have all the passion, like Precious, you have all the talent, like everyone is gifted, but yet you are not seen, you are not heard, you are not anywhere. Yet you know you are there and you know what you are capable of doing, you know your values. Like Frank's audio was on, but there was a technical issue, but we couldn't hear him. And that is exactly what racism does for you. It just demoralizes you. It affects your mental health. It just doesn't make anything work. And that is why we have to do something about racism. Nobody should be judged or treated or hurt based on the color of their skin, based on their religious faith, religious belief, even nationality or even disability. Like Precious said, the only race we should recognize is human race. Apart from that, we should call it out. And when I say call it out, let us look at the OUT. The O in calling it out will be to offer support. And that is the main support will be in appreciating diversity and celebrating our differences. Like when I walk into any place, like the majority of, like everybody there is white and I'm the only Black, probably the only one covered, the only Muslim there, you cannot but see me because I am different. So rather than disassociate yourself or make me feel bad, we should celebrate that difference. I should not let my difference shut me up or remove me from whatever I want to do or devalue me. The best thing is to make good use of it. So when you are calling out racism, you offer support. And the main support we can all offer as everybody here today is inclusion. But inclusion is not just saying everyone is welcome. Everyone is allowed. Racism is like, okay, there's a party, everybody should be there and you don't invite me. But inclusion is you invite me to that party, but there inclusion will be to offer me a share, serve me food, and ask me to dance. So when we are talking about inclusion, inclusion is not just about, okay, everyone is welcome, you can do what you want, fine. Inclusion is making the minority part of decision making because every decision affects everybody. We are the ethnic and racial minorities in Ireland is just 12%. We are not saying that the minorities take over anywhere, no. We are just saying that I want to see me, that 12% in the media, in banks, among the guards, in politics, in schools. I want my children to go out and see that representation. We need to transform inclusion to representation. That is when we can say inclusion is working for us. And that is what my organization, AMDAF, is doing by starting this, the first ethnic minority interest community radio in Galway, because we want to break the barrier of underrepresentation in mainstream Irish media. We want to promote languages because we understand not everybody will have that perfect accent or that, that will just be a definition of being perfect. I am a trained broadcaster from Nigeria, but when I came here, I couldn't get a job because my accent was not or is still not perfect enough. With the community radio my organization is working on, we don't mind whatever your accent is, whatever your language is. We just want you to have a say on issues that affect you. And that is the kind of inclusion everybody here present this afternoon that want to appeal to us to start thinking about. It is not just saying you are welcome, it is really making the ethnic minorities part of decisions that affect them. The you in calling it out will be to understand racism, to know racism is real and understand, and not just be like we are like we are just saying it. Understand that racism kills. Racism can just make you down, can depress you, can affect everything. You can leave your original country of birth full of hope, full of passion, brilliant. You know, you have a goal, you have everything. But when you get here and you are affected by racism, you just forget everything. You just don't care anymore. That is why we need to understand racism and the need to tackle it. And kudos to our Justice Minister for the good news yesterday when she said that will be her hate crime legislation. That is huge, that is superb, that is exactly what we are talking about. The police, the guards needs to have tools that they will use against whoever treated anybody or judged them based on their color, disability, religion, or nationality. And lastly, we'll be tackling racism as a person. The first step will be to report it, to shame it, and to teach love, because no one is born racist. They learn it. So if they can as well learn racism, we can as well teach love. We can as well teach inclusion. We can as well celebrate diversity. We can as well celebrate our differences. That is the best way to tackle it. And for every person of ethnic minority that is here today, that is watching, I want to just make this analogy. If I have this 50 euro notes for anybody who may want it. If I want to give this out as a gift, I will say, okay, do you want it? I'm sure we all love money anyway. If someone offers me Islammiyah, do you want 15 naira? No, do you need it? I'll say, fine, I need it. But now let me do this. Assuming I'm not going to stamp on it, but just assume I just stamped on this naira notes. I just spit on it and clean it up. Let me fold it. Like, you know, make it rough, make it look bad and all of that. Then after this, doing whatever I like, rub it in the mud, making it look dirty. I still want to present it to Kitty, to Kathleen, maybe Brian. Will you still take the 50 naira note from me? Sure, you will still, despite the fact that you have seen all the things I did to it, but what I did to this 50 euro note doesn't devalue the 50 euro note, doesn't devalue doesn't take anything from the value of this euro, of this 50 euro. That is exactly how I want us to view racism. You will be devalued, people will stamp on you, people will spit on you, people will say a lot of hateful things to you. But if you know your value remains what it is. You are still you, and you can achieve anything you want to achieve. If despite all I've done to this 50 euro, I still take it to Tesco and it remains a legal tender, I can still get something in Tesco, in Aldi, anywhere with the 50 euro note, then why should I be bothered with what anybody says to me like, your accent is not good enough, you are too dark, why are you covered? Why are you covered? Are you not feeling hot? It's summer, for God's sake, can you just remove this? That I know me. I know what I want. I know my goal. I know my passion in life. I know what I'm capable of doing. So I want to speak to the likes of me, the likes of Precious, the younger ones that are still coming up, that people would try to devalue you. They will say a lot of horrible things to you, but then your value should remain your value. Just like the value of these 50 euro notes has not changed despite everything I've done to it. And I want to say thank you for the opportunity to express myself here today, to be heard. For me, representation is key. For me, having a voice is everything. Having a voice is also everything, is powerful. It is very important. And I want to appreciate you for giving us a voice on your platform today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Paul?
Yeah, thank you so much, Isla. That was really powerful. I just want to share a little bit story before I introduce Frank. And if this means anything to anybody, this very same former mayor that I mentioned earlier, I was stood in the resource centre with him once, looking out over the estates. And I said, what do you see there? What do you see out there? And he said, I see a lot of people that are draining the Irish state of welfare, which was obviously a disgusting comment. And I said, do you know what I see? I see a lot of people that are trying their best to raise the children in a better society. And they're the kind of people that we should be embracing. And I stand by that with every single person that we deal with in Doughiska. The people that are trying to raise their children in such a good way, to give them a better education, to give them a better standard of living. And we should be embracing that as a society. They're the kind of people that can really help Ireland flourish in the future. So with that, and it just struck me as you were talking that that conversation that I had, you're very valued, as you know, from our point of view, and everybody should be valued. So I'll now hand over to Frank, and hopefully we've sorted out the technical issues. If we haven't, we do have a plan B. So over to you, Frank.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly, Frank. Thank you.
Can hear me. All right, thank you. Now I have to use my phone because I'm so sorry for this, what actually happened. I know it's part of technology and it do happen. Thank you. My name is Frank Owusu, born in Ghana, raised in Ghana. So I came to Ireland here 2008. And you know where I come from, Ghana obviously is part of West Coast. And we know a lot about slavery and kind of discriminations and racism. We do understand all these things. And we are very fortunate. As one time I wanted to come to Ireland, I realized I have to read a little bit about Ireland. And I noticed that, oh, Ireland was not part of the slavery system. So I was so delighted and so happy to know the country I am coming in. Have I been experiencing racism? Oh, many times. But as a man, you grown. You take some of the things which is good, and you take some of the things which is bad, and you move on. But what we're trying to advocate here is to ensure that our children, because they were born here in Ireland, and they are Irish, so they have to be what? Part of the country growth, either politically, either economically, either any institution. So we are now saying that we want our children and the parents to be part of what Ireland is building. I came in mostly in 2015. I walked into the Art Resource Center, and by then I didn't know what to do. So fortunately for me, I met Paul, I met Natasha, I met Eska and Martina, and including Bill Amon. And these people were so much good that they're able to add me, include me. I'm talking about inclusion now. They included me to their place of work. And they involved me to say, Frank, this is what is going to happen. African Day is coming. Will you be included? So what I'm saying is the parents in this island here who are giving birth to these kids, the government, the institutions, everywhere, they should include these parents so that our children not mess with their mind and seeing the teacher who is white, and then they come home and they don't see the difference between the parents, and they bring in problem to their parents at home. Is it marriage equality? Yes. How are we fighting it? We have a type of equalities that we have a natural equality, which means to imply that all men are born free and equal. We have a social equality, we have civil equality, and we have political equalities, we have economic, and we have what equality of opportunity and education. So this is where we want to be. We want to be equal opportunity, have equal education, so that our kids who are born here will be able to stand this intensity and this the diversity what people are moving ourselves into. I was part of the group who sat for the 3 days to ensure that Galway 2020 comes on. I had a privilege to have all these things. Now I work with Avaya as an IT op. I have friends who are having a certificate, and unfortunately, their degree are not accepted here in Ireland. So they have to sit home. I know it's beyond, but all of us can able to help. All of us people here can know that there is an issue, but the issue has to be addressed. So how do we have to address all these things? You know, settle the clear rules in regard to how people should be treated. Challenge any negative activities or attitude. Treat everyone equal. Create all inclusive culture for schools so that we can see that our children will be the future for Ireland. And avoid stereotypes of examples at some resources and say, oh, his language is not like other two speakers mentioned. We have to use resources with multicultural so that we can stand as an Irish. And we'll be proud to see different minority, different backgrounds going to the Olympics, going to playing football and come home with medals. I'm so glad that we have this platform that many people are very aware, or those who are not aware. Today, it is something that we don't want a black kid like in 1918, somewhere around 18 something. There's a guy called Paddy Murphy. When Paddy was speaking Irish, he's a black man but speaking Irish. He was getting laughed. They were laughing at him because they believed that he was mocking. Now the children at school now learning Irish. So we want everyone to be in the same page so that they will be included. Every parent will be included. I had the opportunity, I remember my last point when I went to the school for the PTA meeting, and there was a they want to vote for a chairperson and then resource person. And then all of a sudden there was a lady sitting down there said, I know this man. A white lady pointed and said, I know this man, he can do something better. Before I see in my eyes, I was voted as a chairperson at Doughiska Mellingwood Primary School. It is all about you see from us that make difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much indeed, Frank. Paul, did you want to come back in there?
Just briefly, I think just to say, I think every day in my work, I'm honoured to be working with such amazing people that bring such a richness to our culture, to this country, to society, to the area that I live in and work in. I think there's one question that we should all be constantly asking each other, and that is, how can we make a difference? Because we can make a difference. Sometimes it's just a smile, it's just a hello. It's as simple as that. To make somebody feel involved and included, it's just so important. So I'm just so grateful for our three speakers today for sharing that. We're constantly learning, and we need to keep learning. And I'm so grateful that we were afforded from our Family Resource Centre, which we're all part of, this platform today to speak to everybody. So thank you.
Paul, thank you indeed. And not just to Paul, but to Natasha, Precious, Frank, Islammiyah and Elska, who all made a very valuable contribution. And just looking at some of the comments in the chat, people are just delighted. And if I go back maybe to something that Kevin said towards the end of his input, where he said that really we need to be paying attention is the beginning of ethical action. To do this, we must pay attention to those in front of us. And when I heard Precious speak at the beginning, she spoke about a loneliness which caught me. I just didn't think of such a thing at all. But she also mentioned how she kind of hid away her voice. Well, I think Precious, today you certainly didn't do that. You did an absolutely wonderful job in being heard and making a real difference. I think Islammiyah, I think when you spoke and when we heard that you might be on the radio, that has to cheer us up, because you are such a passionate speaker. And even the whole idea of how you brought us together with regards to the €50 note, which I still haven't managed to get from you, but you have to say you did it very well, in the sense that you are entreating us and you're asking us that we must know our own value, that we are still ourselves. And if we go back to even what Precious has said, where racism is the killer of dreams, which is such a big statement, particularly for people who are so young. And then if we were to look at Frank, and Frank is so passionate about making things different but better to include specifically for the children that are there. I think the work that's going on in Doughiska, which Paul referred to as being particularly disenfranchised and increasingly diverse, but also what struck me was the fact that they just can't get deaf status. Like, how can an area like Doughiska, with all its diversity, not be entitled to a deaf status? And we can't say that the algorithm is racism. It's not the algorithm. It has to be the people or the situation or the institution. And I heard that from Frank, that there is a certain institutional racism that must be challenged. We heard a proud voice. We heard a passionate voice. We heard a young voice. We heard an entreating voice. We heard all of it was underpinned by Kevin earlier this morning. And some of the questions that were asked earlier on by Anne-Marie, by Pia, by Ronan, and even the paying attention as mentioned by Lily earlier, those questions that came in between the two sets of speakers certainly set us up to hear Islammiyah, Precious, Frank, and Paul. So Paul at the very end there asked us to consider the question, how it is that we can make a difference.